Well, hi, everybody. Delighted to join you. I want to thank Brett and Adil for the introductions and for managing the day. I want to thank all of the participants, many of whom I heard over the last couple of hours. I want to thank all of you for your leadership in different ways. My journey to this afternoon's presentation has been a rather interesting one. Left law school in 1979, spent 23 years as a criminal defense lawyer, trial and appellate level, some labor arbitrations on the side, helped set up a legal clinic and was its first chairperson along the way. 10 years in politics, in cabinet every year, including 4 as Attorney General. And for the last 8 years, I've been at Ryerson University, where I helped set up and develop the law practice program and a different route to licensing available to Ontario candidates, and also set up the world's first incubator dedicated to legal tech, also at Ryerson. The theme that I wanted to speak to you about was hope for a better future. It was mentioned the other night that, earlier in the day, that we want to leave people on a positive note. And there is a positive note, because at the end of the day, there's a bright future ahead. A bright future ahead if we choose to make it. A bright future whether you are a lawyer, a law student, a person in need of service, an entrepreneur, a citizen of this country, or resident of any other. I hope for that better future. And I see it as being entirely achievable. Not if we delegate its achievement to somebody else, but if we take the advantage and take the opportunity to pursue it ourselves. Every one of us needs to be part of the hope for a better future. And where does it start? It always starts with leadership. Not the people with the titles, not the people in positions. Every one of us is a leader in this respect. And the common characteristic for all leaders is that they lead organizations and people. They lead people. Leaders, to be successful, whatever else they do, have to believe in people. If you don't believe in people's abilities, if you don't believe in people's promise, if you don't believe in their hard work, if you don't respect them, respect their talents, you'll never lead them anywhere and never achieve anything for them or with them. Achievement is not a solitary endeavor. One of the challenges we have as lawyers is that we seem at times to think that we're special. We're different. We have some different skills, and in certain ways we're special, but we're people. What are the drivers of this better future? Well, the first one is a lesson from law school, but it's more than a lesson from law school. It's a lesson most have learned or learn in life. Think critically. Don't accept everything you're told. Challenge it, to not be skeptical about it, but ask for the evidence. So when you're told, for example, that if you set up a law business with somebody who's not a lawyer, heaven forbid, that your ethics will disappear, ask, is that really true? Do people who aren't lawyers have no ethics? Or do lawyers care about different things? We're told that the commercial principles of non-lawyers will overwhelm the ethics of a lawyer. Hard to make the case when in law we're a profession that bills and measures in 0.6 of an hour and sets annual billing targets for virtually every or most of our services. Ask why these rules exist. And when you're told that it's about ethics, which of course will make everybody stand back, ask for the evidence. Ask if there is any evidence anywhere in any discipline, law, social science, business, anywhere, that suggests that if lawyers and non-lawyers are working together in a business, that the ethics of the lawyer will disappear. There isn't. Apply that critical thinking outside the cases, outside the trial and appellate cases you look at, outside the services you deliver to the world around you. And I'm sure you bring it to every debate. Apply that critical thinking to the rules that are imposed upon you or imposed on others. I think we know what the answer to many of the rules and regulations is. Critical thinking. A second lesson from law school is about precedent. Of course, we are a traditional profession and we love our traditions. And we're always looking for what was decided before. Sometimes we seem to look upon that as an endpoint and not a beginning. It's only ever a beginning. If precedent was the endpoint, there would be no women, no persons of color in our profession. We would still have major law firms which excluded certain religions from their ranks. A lot of things have changed over the years. Precedent's a beginning, and it's not a stopping point for progress. Apply critical thinking, recognize precedent as a beginning, useful starting point by all means, but not an end point. Never an end point. Or how would progress anywhere be made? And how do you assume leadership? Well, bring your critical thinking outside your legal case. Bring your recognition of the importance of precedent, of course, but only as a starting point. Because we've always done something doesn't mean that we always have to do it that way. Gosh, if that was the case, again, as was alluded to earlier, we wouldn't have an iPhone, would we? Because as soon as the iPhone came out, we heard from Eastman Kodak that nobody's going to want to take pictures with a phone. Nobody at all. And nobody needs another phone. They already had the BlackBerries of the world, the Nokias of the world. And guess what? Yeah, internet's not available anywhere. If we'd left it to the existing providers, there would be no iPhone. And probably not the development that its development spurred afterwards, at least not at the same pace. No, precedent can get in the way of progress. Achievement is not a solitary endeavor. It's far more than one. One of the lessons that we have learned in law school is about working alone, the solitary endeavor of the lawyer long into the night. We don't learn a lot about teamwork, about working together, about how we share in success and share in that which falls short of success. One of the drivers of the future's promise is find ways to work with people as opposed to alone. And it's not just people that are like us, whoever you are. Studies conducted across different disciplines have shown that in business, for example, more productive, more profitable companies are those that have diverse groups of people. Diversity of talent, of background, of approach, of perspective, of people. you're enriched by a diversity of thought and perspective. We all have something to offer. Whether it is the ultimate answer or not, we all have something to offer from the debate. And study after study has shown that management teams, that working teams that have a diversity of perspective are stronger in so many ways than those that don't. Ours is a profession that has not led, but lagged in its recognition of this fact. We've left a lot of talent on the sidelines over the years. Found a lot of reasons why people couldn't participate full-time or part-time in our profession, and left a lot of progress behind. We could all make progress on this one, just as we could on the others, by making sure that when we're part of a team, and team we should be part of, when we're part of a team, that they're not always people that just look like Chris Bentley or have Chris Bentley's perspective. Much as Chris Bentley might only want to hear one perspective sometimes, the result will be stronger if there are more of us in different perspectives. Diversity is something it's so important and so undervalued in our legal profession and elsewhere. We've heard a lot today, you've heard a lot today about technology, about its importance, about its emergence, about how it is transforming everything that we do. It's the accelerating rate of change. There's always been a technological advance. Gosh, when I first started, within about a year, it was the fax machine. What a marvelous invention. Now the pace of technological change is so fast, it's hard for many to keep up with. And here's where those more recently in this world have an inherent advantage. You are more used to the accelerating pace of change and more used to technology's adoption and evolution than those who've gone before. So by all means, listen to the voices of the past and listen to the voices that count years of experience to their credit. But remember, the way things were done is not the way things have to be done. You heard earlier today about Zoom and how the use of technology to conduct hearings was not accepted. We wrote an article some years ago prior to COVID suggesting that so much could be done by web conferencing technology, which had been in use in business for decades, and even in the very rare instance in the legal profession for witnesses, for example, that were overseas and couldn't come to the court. But its rapid adoption was resisted. Even simple things like conducting an interview, greatly resisted. Look at what the COVID did to those old notions. And if you think about the old notions, what were they based on? No evidence, no facts. It's just the power of no. It's the power of no by those in authority. You can challenge that, but you have to challenge it. And so now when we're used to a world in which technology, or at least Zoom, is part of our everyday existence, now you get the next level of question. Oh, well, we've got to go back to court quickly and do things in person because, well, why because? Or we all have to be in the same place to do things, well, why? Or my client has to be in the room because, well, why? Yes, I practiced for many years in person, except when you transacted business by phone, of course. That marvelous invention of a century's existence. We don't have to do things the way they were done. And we've shown that the resistance to so much by those we looked up to as leaders was at variance with the evidence and at variance with the facts. Think critically. Precedent's the starting point. Technology is changing so much. You know, there are a lot of lessons from the world around us, not the legal world around us, the rest of the world around us. Long before the legal profession decided it could use Zoom for something, you were using technology to purchase, to negotiate services, negotiate loans for a lot of money, maybe for the purchase of property. You were doing a lot of things outside the law that the law long resisted. If you want to know what the next steps are, chances are pretty good you should look outside the law to see who's doing what. Yes, in other legal jurisdictions, but just in business and life generally. What are people comfortable doing? What do they want to do? Lawyers are always worried about privacy, as they should be, about confidential information, as they should be, in the context of legal communications. Outside the law, people are much more comfortable than the lawyers. We do have legal systems to support society, at least we should. Your leadership, by looking outside and bringing examples in, will strengthen the debate. Your leadership, by looking outside and challenging the adopted orthodoxy of lawyers, will strengthen the debate. Your future as a lawyer or as a professional need not be restricted in the way that it's been traditionally restricted. And you should engage in the debate. And you should encourage the debate. If I've seen anything by watching generations of law students earlier when I was practicing and taught at law school, seeing people that I encountered while I was practicing or during politics, or the law practice program candidates and entrepreneurs that I see now, it's a general and increased willingness to challenge the way things always have been, to say that we can do better, to say that we can listen to voices that haven't been listened to say that other people should have a seat at the table. And yes, many of these conversations have happened outside the context of law, but they are people. We are people. We're all one. We need to bring society's perspective into the legal profession if the legal profession is actually to serve society, to serve and advance the interests of society, to help members of society who are left out, who cannot find a route to access their legal rights. If we're to give them some route to access their legal rights, the 80% of people and businesses who don't have a route to justice because the only route they're offered is by a lawyer, and they can't employ a lawyer. So many are motivated today by a wish to make a difference. There isn't a stronger or better way I can think of to make a difference than by extending a route to justice to the 80%. And that's the same 80% that you can access as a market. Yes, enlightened self-interest is another driver of a better future. Let's not shy away from it. We've had the duty debate for decades, and we are where we are. Your future will as likely be found in serving some of the 80% as it will be found in serving the 20%. Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Apple didn't become what they are by serving the few, but by figuring out how to serve the many. Which brings us to courage. Alluded to earlier in the panel, courage and the willingness to take a risk, not to not a risk with your client's limitation period, but a risk in trying something new, in trying something different, in putting it out there and seeing what happens. There is no progress without courage from somebody. And if everybody waits for the next person to take the first step, there's no progress whatsoever. You're all talented, however situated. You all want a better future, wherever you're situated now. You'd like to see that better future. We need leadership. And that brings us really to the last point, leadership, which was the first point. It's time to unleash your inner Einstein. You're all leaders. What do I mean by that? Well, if you do the same thing in the same way and expect a different result, not a happy state of affairs. And you can't bring the same level of thinking that created the problem and expect it to be its solution. We're all leaders. What I've outlined is not Gatesian, not Jobsian, not Einsteinian in import. None of this is difficult to make progress on. Inviting somebody into the room, challenging an assertion made by another, challenging a traditional rule, just by raising your voice, asking where your future is and why you can't work with somebody who is, quote, not a lawyer, asking why we shouldn't trust the people that we serve. Is it right to have a blanket notion that we can't trust the very people that the legal system is there to serve? I have hope for a better future because I've seen the power of change in so many. I've seen the wish for a better future in so many. I've seen outside of the law so many strong, significant, determined advances by people who had nothing more, no more power than the power of their voice and the willingness to use it. And I've seen within law those who were prepared to challenge the structures, who were prepared to challenge the orthodoxy, who were prepared to stand up. They need supporters. Together, not individually, together, we make progress. Together, we make the brighter future, whether it's you as a law student, you as a lawyer, you as an entrepreneur, you as a needer of legal service. Together, we have a brighter future. Thank you very much for the opportunity to participate in this summit. I wish you all the best in whatever you are doing. There were many inspiring words today, many moments which will rest, I'm sure, in your memory and spur you on to greatness, not least to participate in tomorrow's Day 2 Summit. All the best. Thank you very much.
It's like this. Wow. I stole the mic from Adil, Chris, just because what you said there, which is, an extension of our conversation a couple weeks ago, just hits me so hard. And someone with your credibility, longevity, and frankly, impact on the way law is delivered and the way people receive it fundamentally in this country has been hugely impacted by the work that you've done. And I've been, a fan on the sides for a really long time since law school, reading your work. And, for me, we've got this motto at Goodlawyer, don't just be good, do good. And really, that's one of the things I love about you, is that you kind of epitomize that. You don't just talk about it, you don't just think it, you action it. And, with the LPP program in Ontario, opening up a new option for all of these, law school graduates who couldn't get articles because something in the market was broken. And, that takes me back to law school, thinking about this problem 8 years ago. And it didn't make sense to me when I learned how big the access issue was. 3/4, maybe more legal needs going unmet. And at the same time, it felt like there wasn't enough jobs for students coming out. Like there was too many lawyers. And that's really where the origins of Good Lawyer started, was how can there be too many of us, but yet we help such a small proportion of the legal needs out there? And, you touched on it a little bit. It's not even just a morality and a duty thing. You can look at it purely from the self-interest perspective and recognize that there's this enormous opportunity to service way more people, to even the playing field. For us, we're all about servicing entrepreneurs, startups, small business owners, trying to level the playing field so they can play with the big guys who have a lawyer in their pocket all the time. So with that said, again, thank you so much for joining us. I couldn't have asked for a better keynote today. And, keep doing what you're doing. And I look forward to many more collaborations in the future. So thank you again for coming today.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. Take care and all the best.
Cheers.